A 1-1 draw in the Thames Valley Derby of Doom for the second time this season saw the Royals edge closer to a great escape. Off-the-field issues have not yet derailed the slow but steady progress Sellers' men are making, and within a huge week coming up, we ask, can we actually get out of this? Here to join me, as always, is the man from Maine, Mr. Ross Webber.
Nice.
Ross, what is the most heavily policed sports fixture in America?
Oh, that's a really good question because if people don't know, home and away fans sit together in America. Like it's not, you don't have to be separated. You're allowed to have beer in the stands. So in general, the behavior is a little bit friendlier. I would say that the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys hate each other, like really hate each other, going back to like the 70s and the 80s and stuff like that. So there's a great YouTube video called Randall Cunningham versus the Means of Production, which is about a big strike that happened in the NFL in the 70s and 80s. I'm going to shut up about American football in a sec, don't worry. But the Philadelphia Eagles and Dallas Cowboys games, probably, those guys are from very different cultures and they absolutely hate each other.
Okay. Well, listen, there was more police there yesterday than there was home fans. It was a very, very big day out for the Thames Valley Police Department. So yeah, did it work? Don't know. There was a bit of spice, should we say? Put it that way.
Okay.
But yeah, I was just intrigued really to know which one was the meatiest. Not derby. You don't have derbies in America, do you? But you know what I mean. Like,
no, sometimes in hockey, Boston Bruins versus the Montreal Canadiens, they hate each other. So hockey's got some, but yeah, no, it's not really. Oh, someone's going to drag me across the coast. It's just not really the same in terms of rival culture.
no,
and then you go onto the continent, and then it's like even
worse,
crazier than it is in England, right? With like the Milan Derby and the Rome Derby and all those kinds of things. So, good question.
I try.
Yeah.
Massive thanks to ZCZ Films, who are sponsoring this, our 369th episode of the TTE podcast, but any other podcast that we've done recently, really, they sponsor it all. So thank you very much to those guys once again for their commitment, support, and overall love. And thank you, as always, to you guys for joining us on this review of the Oxford game. So we're going to get into that right now after this short break, and we're going to talk about what went wrong and then what instantly went right right after this break.
Come rain or shine, it's time to relive the latest match action with the recap.
This podcast is sponsored by ZCZ Films, Reading's oldest ultras.
Right, let's get this out of the way first of all. Oxford generally is an all right place. Like it's actually pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
The stadium and the kind of the surrounding parts of the actual Oxford city itself are absolute trash. And honestly, I've been to the Kassam Stadium a few times. It's the first time I've Reading ever, I believe, but it's the first time I've been to Reading anyway. And London Welsh used to play their rugby, and they lasted about, I don't know, a season. There was about 300 people there, so I used to go and watch them a few times. But it's just the most bizarre place ever. It's just weird. Like it's just absolutely soulless. It's very hard to explain. And even on a almost spring-like day yesterday, it just felt really odd to be there for a football game. But we were there. We were there for a football game. We were in, as a team, sort of semi-good spirits, given the survival of the transfer window that we've just had, which we will talk a little bit about later on. I don't know, Ross. I mean, first half was a mess, really. I think I said in the video I did afterwards, we were far too passive. We weren't aggressive enough. We didn't control the game. There was very few positives going forward. Defensively, I guess we were resolute, but Oxford, deservedly were in the lead at half time. And I think had we been playing, a slightly more clinical team than Oxford, we could have been 2 or 3 down. What were your overall thoughts on the first 45 minutes?
I guess I had a bit of I wouldn't say an opposite take, but it wasn't really my take on this. I was talking to some American fans yesterday that I watch mostly Premier League with, and I was trying to explain what watching League One games is like. And I was saying it's like watching a youth game for 20 minutes and then suddenly like a proper professional game will break out and nice football will be played. And for me, there was a lot of yesterday, especially in the second half, that was just sort of a whole lot of meh on both sides. Not a whole lot done. Less than a goal and a half of expected goals between both teams yesterday. So it wasn't exactly, the most exciting game ever. For me, what happened yesterday that blunted Reading, especially in the first half, was that Femi Aziz got doubled up on repeatedly, and they really stopped him from playing through the first half and through the first half an hour, really. And we've talked about, and there's a video that went up the other day about how Aziz just does a whole lot of stuff that is not replaceable in this Reading team right now. Certainly in terms of volume, he gets the most crosses off, the most dribbles off, the most key passes off, which is impressive considering, that's usually wing or Savage's remit or something like that. So I think really what happened was Reading's usual point of attack was entirely blunted. Oxford are a decent team, they're sitting in the playoff spots, and it took Reading a while to work out what on earth they were going to do if they couldn't put it to Aziz. So for large stretches of the first 15 minutes, that meant that they weren't really getting much of a foothold in the game at all. But I thought that Makairu started to come into it more as the half went on, and we had a few chances down the left side, which was good to see because we have been very right side heavy recently. The one that I liked the most was sort of Makairu coming in from the left and playing it to Wing, who then played a 1-2 with Nibs just outside of the box to get a shot off. So I think basically what happened was Oxford shut down our main point of attack, and it took us a while really to work out what we're going to do without that. But it's a question that Reading are going to need to answer in the weeks to come, because I mean, what if Femi Aziz gets injured? We're going to have a game plan for scoring outside of him. But defensively, I think that just trying to block up the middle channel is kind of working for Reading at the moment. We're not giving away many shots. Button's not having to do a whole lot for large periods of games. So just another bit of a slug match in League One, as per usual, unfortunately.
I think that the main issue I had in the first half was that we didn't get control of the ball at all, and there was very few. Not that we've been, particularly prolific in this area, but there was very few overlaps. So, since Abby's gone, or rather been out of the team, there isn't anyone really to carry the ball progressively from defence. And actually, we had Bindon who was trying to make those runs, and there was very few options, if any, shown for him. Wing and Craig were sort of getting in each other's way a little bit, really. Dorset didn't have either the pace or the potential to kind of go forward. And for me, there was a lot of breakdown in midfield. Sam Smith, I thought was doing what he could in terms of chasing shadows, but there was nothing going forward in the first half. And I just was very, very concerned at half time when, we swapped Makairu and Aziz, I guess, because obviously talked about the double up in terms of that.
Well, see, there you go, right? Doesn't that speak to the Reading actually? Reading never do that. And it is surprising. Like, I remember there was a point in time when it used to be really common to switch your wingers, but it's not really done too much these days. But the fact that Reading had to do that shows how well Oxford did with Aziz in the first half, in my opinion.
And, they had Brannigan in the middle who's kind of controlling the play and being fairly aggressive from that central midfield point of view. Obviously, I was a little bit surprised at the team selection in terms of dropping Savage and bringing Craig in, because I just felt, and I said this on the pod last week, that we were almost being too defensive in a lot of respects. At least with Savage, that he's going to try and link the play a little bit more than Craig does. Another player that obviously came in.
Can I jump in on the Craig and Savage thing quickly? Less than
No,
20-second point. Sorry. Just
you've
a
got
really
18 seconds.
really weird day from Savage and Craig yesterday. You can ask me to defend it later if you want, but I thought Craig was actually really good yesterday. And Craig ended up having higher passing accuracy and creative passes numbers than Savage, whereas Savage ended up having like perfect scores on his defensive stuff. So just an odd bizarro land day for Savage and Craig yesterday.
I mean, it is weird. It is bizarre. But anyway, in terms of those subs, which we'll talk about in a minute, they were too little, too late, but it kind of worked, if that makes sense. Anyway, we'll come on to that. You've put me off now. What was I going to talk about?
Sorry. You're moving on to another player brought into the team.
Right, Mbengue. He came in through partial necessity, I guess, and I say that through gritted teeth. He didn't have a good game. Why?
Oh, interesting. Okay, how did I think? Well, did Mbengue have a what didn't you like about Mbengue? Because I can remember a couple of moments, but I'm interested to hear what you didn't like.
Positionally, he was like a fish up a tree. He was sloppy in the tackle. He was just all over the place. He was literally all over the place. And I think really, and you talked about this before, in terms of options, we could have put Dorset in there. I think, I went with Sim yesterday and we were talking before the game about potentially, is it Monlouis? I'm doing a Tim Della here. Is that how you say it? Monlouis?
You know what? We're going to have to just pick one there, aren't we? It's going to be Monlouis or Monluis, and whichever one you pick, that's it for the rest of the season. We're just going to have to be strong with it. I do think that Mbengue missed some tackles in where he was trying to step up and out of the line to make tackles, and that's actually kind of usually Binden's role. When Reading, when Reading set their centre backs up, did not think Mbengue did nearly as well as that as Binden does. He missed a few tackles when he was going in to do that, and I mean he's been mad in like all of his substitute appearances recently. So like, it's just. I thought Tyler Binden was pretty good yesterday, but he was made to look very good, by Mbengue next to him, basically, is probably the best way I can describe Mbengue's performance.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Binden was very, very good yesterday. I thought it was one of his better performances of the season, given everything that was going on. I thought Dorset was okay. I want to see my fullbacks get forward. I want to see him, get up the pitch and kind of motor a little bit. And there were times, certainly in the first half with Dorset, where he didn't seem confident, or he didn't have the license to kind of push forward and make those overlapping runs that, we've probably seen sort of historically from our fullbacks, really. So, yeah, it was a tricky first half. Obviously, second half, as we said earlier, they kind of swapped sides, Aziz and Makairu, and then, of course, the subs came on in 74th, 73rd minute, something like that, and changed the game.
Mm-hmm.
What did you make, first of all, of Kelvin coming on the left-hand side there?
So Tom and I had a brief chat about this after, I think it might have been around the Derby game. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't mind him there. I kind of like it, because one of the things that something that's been slowing Makairu down and really meaning that our right side is where most of the attacking is coming from, is that even though Makairu can dribble with the ball, he's not nearly as he's not nearly as much of a progressive carrier. He's a dribbler, like Femi
don't start with that.
I'm sorry, I've been using it a lot now, but Femi is a good progressive carrier who gets the ball to dangerous positions and then, is a volume crosser, at least once he gets there, a volume passer. Makairu just hasn't been there. I actually thought he had some good moments yesterday, but Kelvin does seem to end most of his actions, with a shot or a pass or something. Like I remember he's had a lot of passes, a lot of shots, blocked in his recent substitute appearances. He tries to get something off. He tries to be productive, not just hustle and bustle. I quite like him out there on the left. Actually, I do think that if they played a 4-2-3-1, then he's even further inside on the left, and maybe a little bit closer to the goal. So that would help him to sort of break. It's been a little while. Since he's got a goal. Obviously, yesterday's kind of got a goal, but it's an own goal. But yeah, no, I kind of like him on the left. I think it suits his profile quite well as a player. I understand that he wants to play striker, of course, but still, again, another young kid, and I think that if he can learn how to play well and cut inside from there, it's just going to make him more dangerous as a striker when he's trying to run, diagonal runs through the box and things like that as he progresses. So yeah, it's a weird one. It struck me as odd when it first started happening. I'm kind of liking Kelvin as a left-sided player.
I don't think he's going to be trusted again up front on his own. In this formation that we're playing with the one up front. I don't think Sellers is going to have him up there again. Obviously Sam Smith is kind of first, or in that group of players that's going to be first on a team sheet if he's fit. So, Kelvin is not going to get another stab at that really in the foreseeable future. So if we can, for want of a better phrase, crowbar him into the team on the left-hand side or, maybe even the right-hand side, I don't know.
Well, really and I will point out quickly, though, something you might not have liked is I did spot that at times when Kelvin was on towards the end, it looked a little bit like a 4-2-2. Where Smith and Kelvin were the furthest forward, and then especially once Elliott came on for Aziz towards the end, and it wasn't so much a formation that needed width; it needed players around the ball. They did kind of drift back into that old routine. I'd really like them to get towards 4-2-3-1 rather than towards 4-2-2.
Let's talk about the other kind of main side. Obviously Mola came on, but that was kind of like for like, and he didn't really have a huge amount to do from memory. No. Obviously, Savage came on as well, and as you said, did well defensively, which is not what we've known him for. However, I do feel that he was incredibly hard done by over the performances from the last 2 games to be dropped for this game. I really felt that. He would have made a difference from the start in this game. Granted, I think he made like 3 tackles in a row or something, kind of a bit of a lung-busting move. But he just links, for me, I know we talk about this to death really, but he links the midfield and the defence a lot better. And he looks for those passes that maybe other players don't. And at times, Oxford were very, very flat in the way that they set up yesterday. And I just felt we needed a bit of a line break in terms of... in terms of that killer pass, and I think Charlie would have done that. But on the balance of the game and the way it went, I think probably a draw was all right because we weren't. Yeah, we didn't really threaten for like 70 plus minutes or whatever. No. And then once we had the goal, the momentum shift was just crazy because it's like give us another 5 minutes, we'll probably get a winner here because they were, as a team, they were absolutely rattled. They were out on their feet, Oxford. So it was very, very. Very telling that those subs, whereas the previous week against Leyton Orient I felt disrupted the game, they massively improved what we were trying to do. So, the important thing was we didn't lose. We haven't lost momentum there. I think we've lost once in like 10 games or something now.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's ultimately clawing us up, dragging us up the table sort of point by point.
Slowly, agonizingly. But now it's 2 points behind our friends at Port Vale. So, yeah.
Who are in free fall along with Charlton, although Charlton have just, brought in Nathan James, which we'll talk about in the preview. Just to kind of wrap up Oxford even, Sellers said after the game, we were low in terms of intensity, aggression and forward playing, and the players on the bench would make a difference. They changed the dynamic of the game. We came here to get the 3 points, but the performance was there at moments in the game. I think a point is fair. Do you think that, final question for you in this game, that he set us up originally to get the 3 points? Or do you think his mindset was like, I just don't want to lose this game?
That's a great question. I can't speak to what was going on in his mind, but I think that I think that he got it wrong this game, personally. I will have a video coming out on this. Always be promoting. But I really think that the 4-1-4-1, I wouldn't say it's completely run its course, and pretty much everything that Reading are going to play is going to come out of some sort of 4-3-3. But I don't think that the lineup, not necessarily the lineup, but the game plan yesterday was good enough to go and get the 3 points. And I do think that we need to work out how we're gonna attack when it can't go through Femi. Because if a team, if other teams watch this and they see that they were able to disrupt us for a half of football just through shutting down one player, then we're going to struggle to score goals. So I'd like to see us move towards some sort of double pivot. I don't think that width is the strength of this team, so a formation that doesn't rely on it so much, I think, would be beneficial. I understand again that formations are just sort of numbers on a chalkboard at the end of the day, but I think there are some tweaks that should have been made. It did feel a little bit like we were just going out to get a point again.
Yeah, I mean, with that in mind, important that we didn't lose, really, because we looked like we were going to for a large chunk of the game. So, overall positive point. We move on to Stevenage on Tuesday, and then we also move on now to the mailbag, which is it's pretty heavy this week, actually. And we're going to start with the seller's question. So we're going to take a short break, and then we will be back.
Keep up to date with all things Reading FC. Follow the Tilehurst End on Facebook and Twitter.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by ZCZ Films. Remember, if you want to get involved in sponsoring the show, drop us an email to thetilehurstend@gmail.com.
Alrighty, welcome back to episode 369 of the Tilehurst End podcast. Heavy mailbag, hefty mailbag, large mailbag, as I said before the break. We're going to start with Wimby, Lord Wim. He's got his own podcast, obviously. I know what I'm talking about. I know that he put up a podcast extra last week, so that is available in the back catalogue. It was a sort of a pre-deadline day preview. Is that the right word? I don't know. Anyway, have a listen to it. It's pretty good. He was on there, but he's chucked us a question, which we always appreciate from you, Daniel. Just overall thoughts on Sellers right now. Think he's the right man going forward long term? ? What do you think?
I mean, it's a good question. I think he is the kind of team builder that we need right now, with a bunch of like young players and things like that. And I think that we've seen some improvement, from individuals throughout the season. So, I think that Harvey Nibbs' game has improved as the season's gone on, for instance. And I think that obviously Nelson Abbey is a great player. Some of his development there was helped and handled by Sellers in terms of getting him into the first team. So I think that he's a pretty good squad builder. I think that if we're able to crest this season, and get a new owner and be able to start operating in a proper way again, then the question will start to be asked, is this a manager that we can get promoted with? I do still struggle with some of his game plans, but it's impossible to deny that he's made the team hard to beat at a really crucial point in the season. I would like us to be a bit more free-flowing with how we score goals, but that was a complaint that Southampton fans sometimes had about him as well. So I don't think he's that kind of manager. I don't think we're ever going to be a team that tends to score more than 2 goals in a game really under him. So it's going to come down to what the ownership, the new ownership, if we get new owners, what their vision is for how the team plays. Because if it's, with free-flowing attacking football, I don't think Sellers is going to give that to us. But in terms of having now taken some time to make the team hard to beat, and I think we're, there's no point moving him on before the end of the season for my money. It's unless, we really fall off a cliff in the next month, it's his shit now until the end of the year.
I mean, I guess it really means, or really what your interpretation of long term is. I think, it was quite telling in the week when he was going on about the departures and he kind of said, oh yeah, well, I knew about that. And it's like, I don't know, like at the moment he could say, let's go and kill all the puppies in Berkshire, and people would go, yeah, that's a good idea. Like he's got a lot of money in the bank now because of the way that he has kind of galvanised the fan base to a point. almost out of default, really, in terms of the way that he's behaved, the way that he has kind of supported the fans in their aims, but also kind of just he is the front, he's the front man for all this at the moment. No one else is coming out and backing him up. I know
Right.
Bowen turned up to a press conference or a presser the other day before one of the games, but really, no one's been coming out and going, "Don't worry about that, mate. We'll sort that out. We'll field that question," which it doesn't reflect well on people at the club at all, in my opinion. Long term, I mean, look, I've had to eat some humble pie, as you know, Ross, over the last couple of weeks. I'm still not convinced he knows really what he's doing. I think the players tend to dig him out a little bit in terms of getting him out of some of the weird decisions that he's made and kind of almost accidentally making it work. I'd agree with you yesterday. I think he got it massively wrong with the way that we were set up for that game, and certainly the two changes that he made or chose to make. But look, he keeps us up. Personally, I'll be forever grateful to him because he won't. Anyone else coming in now, from a takeover point of view, it won't be before the end of the season, as you said, unless we absolutely, collapse over the next couple of weeks. He's not going to be sacked because, they can't pay him, to be honest.
That's true.
So
I think
if he keeps us up, great, fantastic.
Yeah.
But to do anything other than that, I think is a tall order for him, and I'm not convinced, as I said, that he knows really how to manage those players and to fully play to their strengths. That's my take on it.
I don't necessarily think my concern with him moving forward beyond, keeping us up and stabilizing us again is that I don't necessarily think that he always picks the right game plan. I think he's a guy who likes his game plans because, he comes from that sort of sports scientist and analyst world. So I think he liked coming up with specific game plans, but I think that sometimes he gets in his own way with that. Like yesterday, I think that I don't even know if he was trying to be too defensive or what. My main overriding thought with Sellers is this: I think he's going to be remembered, good or bad, and whatever your thoughts on him as a Reading fan are, I think he's going to be someone that we remember. When I think back to that sort of post most recent Premier League era with Adkins and Clement and Stam and Steve Clark and all those kinds of guys, a lot of them just drift into a mishmash in my head. Like I often forget which seasons happened under like Clement and Steve Clark in particular, and Adkins. So I'm never going to forget this season. I know that much. And I'm never going to forget a lot of what Sellers has said in key moments, in key press conferences and things like that. So yeah, he's definitely going to lead, regardless of whether it's good or bad. And these next few months are huge for him, obviously, in his career, as well as Reading's next few years. I think we're going to remember Ruben Sellers for a long time.
The one thing I do, obviously, desperate to stay up. We all, well, I mean, it's massive for us then in this league now, in terms of the takeover. But what would be an ideal scenario is that he keeps us up. And he goes, "Thanks very much, lads. I'm off. See you later." He gets the choice out of this season to go, actually, Joe, I either want to stay or I don't, before someone comes in and sacks him. Because
would you not want to see...
If he does keep us up.
Sorry, Ben, I was going to say, would you not want to see just like one or two transfer windows of what it looks like when he can actually operate in a window and buy players that he wants?
No.
That's kind of no.
To be honest, I just don't. The manager managers that we really need are ones that we know are going to get 2 years at this club, and he is the type of manager, and we are the type of fan. I say we, but recently that if he has one transfer window and it doesn't go right within 2, 3, even 4 weeks, people are going to go, right, get out, and the whole place is going to turn toxic again. And he, for me, and this is with anyone on the footballing side of it, and sorry if this is kind of a bit cold-blooded, but like they're all connected with the old regime now. And actually, what you need is, for me, is always a clean break in these situations. You always need someone to come in and go, do you know what? We're just going to start again now. Thanks very much for everything, but
I don't know. I think I kind of feel like Bowen and Sellers might be spared from that. I mean, the Sellers will be more. Actually, I guess they'll both be under threat when a new owner comes in, and if they want to put their own sporting pieces in place, in terms of the coach and the sporting director, they'll do that. But I think that, I don't know, Bowen's had a weird year, but I do still think that what they tried to do in the summer with the transfer strategy was the right thing to do. I understand that obviously it took a few months to get some of those players playing well, and to really get some consistency out of the team. But I also think that, like we've said before on pods, if we get out of this year, we now have a squad full of young, hungry assets that want to do much better, that should be able to either progress and do really well with Reading, or progress and get sold and help us to start actually, making some money again. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess I think Sellers and Bowen might be safe under new ownership. And if they are, I am curious. What a transfer window with actually able to buy players Sellers looks like.
I mean, either way, ultimately it rests on us staying in this league.
Mm-hmm.
The alternative is well, it's not worth thinking about really. So. Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole pod on Sellers really, but look, official tagline from me is that I'm grateful to what he's done so far. I'm not completely convinced, but actually, I don't have the luxury to be completely convinced because we just need points and that's it. And we get to April and we're technically safe, then fantastic. I say April because the season finishes in April, but do you know what I mean? Not like right up to the last game, sort of.
Yes, it would be nice to get out of there soon.
Exactly.
And actually, Ben, we'll talk about this during the Charlton preview, so I'll shut up about it now. But we've got an equivalent of the Exeter New Year's Day game now with Charlton coming up. So we'll see how that goes.
Sam Richards asks, how does Sellers solve the issue of Smith becoming so isolated for large periods of games? I would love to hear Sam Smith's view on that. I really would, say to him, how do you like playing, mate? What helps you to succeed and score goals? For me, as a fairly hefty observer, I would say it's linked to the midfield and the balls that they're prepared to play from. I mean, he did an awful lot of work yesterday. I thought you were really harsh, by the way, on your ratings. I was like, 5?
5? Wow.
Brutal. It wasn't his fault. He was completely and utterly blocked out of the game for most of it. He had no room to move and no one was giving him any balls to feed.
All right. So, yeah, okay. So with that, right, here's the thing with Sam Smith and that. How long can we keep saying that? Because at some point, right, we used to criticize Lucas João when he wasn't getting on the ball enough. And Sam Smith, the way in which he doesn't get on the ball, the way in which he doesn't do well is very different to the way in which Lucas João didn't do well. But I don't know. I think it's been a couple of months now since Smith's done something particularly notable. And I do agree. No, because actually, they were trying for ages and ages to do like balls over the top from Button to Smith, and that worked for a bit, and then that got shut down. But they haven't found anything else to get him going. And I don't know. I don't really know. It's odd with
I will say I thought it was hold-up play yesterday was pretty sloppy. There were so many times when the ball was sort of bouncing around and he could have just put his foot on it and controlled it a bit more, but he didn't.
Yeah.
He was trying to just shovel it off as quickly as possible. So I would, in that respect, I think his hold-up play yesterday wasn't the best it could be. But, it is a good question. Like, how do we solve that issue? For me, you just play two up top, but he's not going to do that. So, the days of us playing two up top are long gone and distant memories. What could he do to solve this problem?
Again, for me, it's I like the idea of getting Nibs closer to Smith, and I think that's the best way to have somebody around Smith, like making runs, moving around him so that Smith can make quick little interchanges and things like that. And Smith and Nibs do play well together. So if you play that sort of 4-2-3-1, you've got Nibs right behind Smith. Smith likes to drift back anyway, so Smith and Nibs can sort of switch positions. That will give Smith more chance to get involved with the game, and thus, his touch should improve as the game goes on and things like that. That was part of the issue with Femi yesterday, by the way. He hardly got on the ball. So when he did get on the ball, his touch was like an anvil. Wasn't working well at all. So for me, it's about getting Nibs close to Smith. It's not about it's about getting the 10 close to Smith. It's not about putting another striker up there. I do get where like the put two strikers on arguments come from, but for me, all you end up with if you put another striker on is another person to run around and not get the ball. You need someone to get the ball to him in the first place.
Would you play someone else in a 10 position other than Nibs? And this is not me leading you to anything. This is just me generally asking you a question.
It is good. No, it's a good question. Ben Elliott is the other one. If Nibs had to come out for injury right now, I would put Elliott into that spot probably. I think difficult to say.
We haven't really seen anything from Ben Elliott, and that's not necessarily his fault. I think he's been underused. I think when he has been used, he's been used in the wrong positions. Obviously, at AFCON as well, which he went off to. But hopefully in this run in now, we're going to see a few more. Well, potentially, as you say, if Nibs has a problem starting positions, but also a few more cameos off the bench would be good. To try and affect the game. Talking of cameos off the bench, Josh Buck says, is it time to start Ihebitaman or is he the next Lafondra?
Ooh, good question.
That's a nice one.
Still, for me, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see another few instances of him staying out on the left side. I mean, I'm fine if he does get a few starts because, like I said, I think it's been a little while since Smith has put in a really good performance. So I wouldn't mind if Kelvin gets a start up front, but I don't mind him playing out on the left. Maybe start him out there instead of Makairu one day and just see what that looks like for 60 minutes.
Well, I think the key thing now is we've got options, despite the fact that we've had players leave in the transfer window, which, ultimately I think was, I mean, it's not positive. Of course it's not. But, given what it could have been when Abbey went in, the first or second week of the window, and you think everyone's in the shop window now, they did well to limit it to those key positions, I think, because
100%.
We've got players in that team that for me are irreplaceable, I think. And players, as difficult as it is to see Abbey and McIntyre to extent, obviously Holmes has come back although injured. We've got players that can fill in those roles, and there's other players to pick up the slack. I know it's not ideal, but actually, having that kind of those options with Kelvin yesterday is an interesting twist that we probably didn't see sort of 48 hours ago. So it's a nice problem to have moving forward.
Yeah.
I just don't think that really there's any merit to starting him as yet because the players in those positions are infinitely stronger than he is currently. Yeah. That might change, but this is where we are.
I will go back to Ben Elliott now that Vickers is gone. I wouldn't be surprised if Elliott gets a little bit more time because I feel like time for a young player who can play wide or can play central, who is an attacker. That time was half going to Vickers and half going to Elliott currently. So I think that now Vickers is gone, Elliott might get a little bit more time. Not that Vickers was getting ages. Just think that Elliott might get a little bit more. I would like to see him play central. I think that we have seen him slide a few good balls into the box. He likes one particular ball that goes to the outside of the box to usually Femi. He does that all the time when he plays Elliott. So, I'd like to see him play in that 10 role.
Changing pace slightly, Andy Taylor says, given how skint we are, could we see a kit being used for more than one season for the first time in years? I can categorically state, Andy, that the answer to that question is no.
Yeah, not a chance.
The kit for next season is done and dusted.
Oh, really?
It hasn't been paid for. But I don't think that's unusual.
No,
I
not
don't
this
think
stage
it's
of the
like, oh my
season.
God, we're late on this payment. I don't think that it's panic stations with that at all. But I
Yeah.
know that the kits have been sorted for next season.
Yeah.
So yeah, we
Well,
won't be with the same
I
kits.
think that the
It's buy them
club
while you can, basically.
I think that the club and Macron would both be thinking, God, this is one of the few ways we could still make money off Reading is the kits at the start of every season. They're obviously popular and you see them around. I've changed. I'm wearing the grey kit today. I've kind of changed my opinion on that as the season's gone on.
I like the grey. A grey kit's cracking.
I was wrong. I started out not so much on that, and then I saw Harvey Nibbs playing football in it a lot, and now I'm like,
It's,
ooh.
it's
I don't
always
look.
one of those where you look at it and go, that looks great on professional athletes. And then you
Yeah,
put it on.
yeah, exactly. I don't look quite as good as Harvey in it, but
Yeah.
not too bad.
I tell you who did wear the grey shirt incredibly well. Nelson Abbey.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Sweet
That's fair.
Nelson.
And my favorite photo of the year so far is of Femi celebrating against Peterborough in the grey kit as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Which player wears the purple kit the best?
Oh, not Nick Blackman. He hated the African violet, so he wouldn't like that.
He wasn't keen on it, was he?
No, he wasn't. I think Wing's a good shout for that.
Do you reckon?
Yeah,
I
Wings are
think
good.
Sam Smith. But mind you, Sam Smith is like the most handsome man in Berkshire, so he could wear anything and he'd be all right.
Yeah. I did enjoy that content of him getting a fade or whatever it was the other day. Getting a haircut. That was great.
And it made me feel good because my hairline is still there. It goes in fits and starts, but I felt really good when I saw him doing that.
Yeah. Well, hey,
don't be ashamed of it. Embrace what you got. So
yeah, exactly.
yeah. I asked the question, or the question on the tweet earlier was, given that a lot of us have just spent 90 minutes at the Kassam Stadium, dreadful place, as we said earlier. We said, what's the worst ground you've ever been to? A few statements. John House said the old Northampton ground was worse. One whole side was part of the county cricket ground. That's interesting.
That's great.
That's pretty, yeah, wow. Fair play.
Okay, yeah.
Mark Sugar, the Withdean was an awful experience. Seemed to recall two of our 4 visits, it rained heavily. The Withdean had like a massive running track around the outside of it.
What team was that?
Which was not ideal. Will has literally just put Millmore, which Rotherham's old ground.
Okay. I remember.
What my one is.
I'm sorry. I had to remind myself with Dean, and I now remember it from that very, very different era of Brighton and Hove Albion.
That was a
club.
Steve Cocker Brighton team. That was.
Yeah, I just remember some odd it's very Manish on the EFL highlights back in the day. After a match of the day, like seeing with Dean in Brighton. It was a very like Manish late evening sort of thing that I remember. I don't know. I'm talking nonsense. What's your one?
Ninian Park was horrible.
Okay. I went to Luton really last year. Luton was pretty bad, yeah. I mean, like Luton was funny though, and I was with my American wife, and she thought it was hilarious that we were going through, people's houses to get into the stadium. So, but Luton was pretty bad.
Portsmouth, like Fratton Park.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really tight, unpleasant experience.
Yeah.
That's not good.
My dad's a Southampton fan, and he's been going to Southampton games since the 70s, and he has some quite interesting stories about going down Fratton Park as an away Southampton fan, which we won't get into now for legal reasons, but many interesting stories.
Burnley, terrible place.
Okay.
Burnley, absolutely.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Place.
Sorry, Burnley.
Worst ground. I mean, Macclesfield's old ground, Moss Rose, used to be horrendous.
Okay.
It was almost like it was like, from memory, it was like temporary. One stand was basically just like temporary. It wasn't actually like there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, speaking of temporary, then I'll go with like not even a whole stadium, just one stand. The temporary, in inverted commas, extra stand that got put on Bournemouth Stadium, Dean Court, is awful. Like, it's so bad. They put a temporary stand down, and they said that it would be there 2 or 3 years or whatever. It's been 10 years, and it's still there, and nothing's changed. And it is this cold shed that sucks up sound so that it doesn't properly create an atmosphere. And in the year of our Lord 2011 or whatever it was, they built obstruction pillars into the stand. What are you doing? This isn't White Hart Lane.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's like someone's accidentally spent the money on, premium pies as opposed to a stand there.
Right. Okay. Wait, premium pies?
Yeah, like really nice, good pies as opposed to the crappy ones.
To which one do you like? Do you like the nice pie or the crappy pie? Either way.
Well, it depends. I mean, you get what you're given at these places, right?
That's fair. That's actually one of the things I miss about English football the most is the pies. But I digress.
I'll tell you what I did yesterday. I brought Sim, because I'm really generous like that. I brought him a bottle of Coke, and they let us keep the lid on.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
No, I thought, God, you're brave. It's like the derby of death, this one, and you're letting people take bottles.
I'm just imagining you ending up in a police lockup and that one bottle cap ending up in an evidence locker by the end of the night.
Well, do you know what? The tickets we had were literally right next to the away fans, and there was obviously like a big. You probably saw it on the on Royals TV or whatever you're watching on, but like. There was like a big tarpaulin that covered, rightly so, in between the sets of fans. But you can still hear stuff. Do you know what I mean? You can still hear quite a lot of what's going on between the divide. So, not great. Worst ground, though. I don't know. I asked the question, but I didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
Ninian Park wasn't good at all. I don't like Burnley. Horrendous place that as a venue. Worst ground. I mean, Oxford's got to be up there. It really has.
Yeah.
If you go on public transport, Oxford has to be probably the most difficult ground to get to in the country, I'd say. From like a mainline train station.
Yeah, it didn't look particularly fun. Some of the pictures from the car park looked very... It's just odd that a place, like you said at the start, as nice as Oxford has a stadium that crummy.
Yeah. I think they're in the process of trying to move to a different part of Oxford. But even so, like, I would imagine there's so much money in Oxford. Anyway, shut up about Oxford. No one cares about them. They couldn't beat us at our lowest ebb.
Right.
So, let's not talk about them anymore.
Not worth talking about.
Let's talk about Stevenage. What a glamorous league we're in at the moment.
Yeah.
So from Oxford to Stevenage and then to Cheltenham. Let's do that. Let's do the preview right now.
There's another huge game ahead for the Royals, so be loud and be proud for the big match preview.
Right. I'll still, yeah. Ross has just told me
Let's talk about Stevenage.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's difficult for me to take, and this is going to sound awful given our situation, right? So just bear with me. But it's very, very difficult for me to take Stevenage seriously when I've seen a photo of their manager, Steve Evans, holding a West Highland Terrier under his arm.
We talked about this last time we played Stevenage back in August, and we'll have to tweet it out again because it is funny.
Literally lives in my head rent-free. It's ridiculous. Anyway, what isn't ridiculous is their current form and league position. They currently sit 6th, I think, just sort of in and around the playoff zone. They're kind of well up on the form table. We go there Tuesday night. It's Tuesday night in Stevenage in February. Glamour.
Lovely.
Ross, what is the best case scenario for us in this game coming up? And while you're doing that, I'm going to Google this photo quickly.
Okay, yeah. Stevenage are an interesting one. We beat them 2-0 earlier in the season. This is a game in which we were still using the 4-2-2. Stevenage had a player sent off in the first 20 minutes. So that was when I think they were top of the league at that point. And they're still having a pretty good season, like you mentioned. They've bumped Oxford out of the playoff spots now, so good for them. And they're only 7 points off the top two with games in hand, so they have a chance to have a really, really good season. Steve Evans is one of those odd managers that gets you playing. I guess he'd be like the League One and League Two version of Neil Warnock almost. Gets your squad playing well. There's probably a limit and on where he can take it, but they're going to be tough to beat, really, really tough to beat, especially at home. And I think that this might be another game where even if Reading pick up a point, you have to just agonizingly say, all right, that's a good result again. It's going to be a tricky game for sure against them. Pick up an extra 3 points though that we might not be expecting, and we've really got the pressure on Charlton for the game at the weekend though. So yeah, going to be an interesting game versus Stevenage.
Well, look, I mean, based on league positions, I found that photo, by the way.
Nice.
I'm going to show it to you just to remind you of what I have to deal with on a regular basis every time someone talks about Stevenage. Look, Oxford was 7th going into the game yesterday. Stevenage are now 6th after yesterday's play. So, we're almost contradicting ourselves, or rather, I'm in danger of contradicting myself because I'm saying, right, we've got to go to Oxford and we've got to set up to win the game rather than, don't have the mentality of not lose. Yet we're going to Stevenage in a couple of days' time. And in my head, I'm thinking, don't lose that game. And that's a really good point. So this is where we still don't really know how good we are. Obviously we've lost one game in 10, I believe, sort of midway through the form table over the last 6 games. Stevenage are 4th in that table, having won 4 of the last 6 and lost 2. That's a pretty impressive. That's a pretty impressive turnaround for them, and they're going to be disappointed if they don't make the playoffs, having spent most of the season in and around that. Is there a reality in which we can actually go and win this game, or is it literally just get a point, get out of there, see you back at the Manstad on Saturday?
I think it might be interesting to see if we see Montlouis on Tuesday, because 2 games in a week, obviously, you'd think that we'd be probably trying to get him going. Sellers might think that Charlton is the better game for that, but I don't know if I'm so sure of that. I think that Reading are just not going to score more than 2 goals basically ever. So I mean, if they can keep it to Stevenage just scoring the 1, then yeah, they got a good chance to go and get 3 points. But a lot of how Reading get points this season for me seems like it's going to be determined on the defensive solidity and whether they can keep that up as much as it is towards how much they can go and attack. So maybe we could win this, 1-0 or 2-1 or whatever. Like I say, we've already beaten them once this year. But it's going to start with the defensive solidity, and I'm not sure having Mbengue in there at centre back is going to be the way to keep that going consistently.
Yeah, well, I mean, they beat Blackpool yesterday because we're recording this on Sunday. Beat them 1-0, 85th minute winner from Forster Kasky, who is obviously technically a Reading legend without ever having played for us with a name like that. But it's going to be a difficult game. And then, of course, we move on to Charlton, come what may, on Tuesday, who have just appointed Nathan Jones as their new manager, which ultimately is kind of the worst possible time for us, really. Charlton have really been drawn into it over the last couple of weeks. They're bottom of the form table over those last 6 games, having lost 4 of those games.
And I don't think they have to play anyone, do they? Oh no, they do. Do they have a game? I don't think they have a game on Tuesday like we do as well. So they've got a full week on the training zone with a training ground with the new manager.
I mean, what are we hoping for out of that game? It's got to be 3 points, hasn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's 3 points regardless of Nathan Jones. I don't don't know if Nathan Jones is that amazing of a manager. I think it looks like a good get for a League One club, obviously. But football's weird, man. Like Chris Wilder was being touted for us back in the summer. Looked like that got relatively close, and now he's the Sheffield United manager, and he's complaining about sandwiches. So, I mean, football is a very weird place. I think you have to aim at 3 points for that, regardless of what Nathan Jones might be able to come in and get his team to do. He's a manager who's got a very specific play style with 3 at the back and doing things with width and stuff like that. So I think it's going to take longer than a week to train his squad in that. Whether they get a new manager bounce right away, that's a different story, obviously. And I would hate to suffer that. That would be annoying.
I mean, we have to go all out. Regardless of what happens on Tuesday, we have to.
Yeah, I agree.
It's got to be 3 points.
Yeah.
If we end the week, if we're sat here in a week's time, we go, look, we've got 4 points out of those 2 games. That's good.
If we can take 6 points out of these next 2 games, we'll completely change the complexion of the last few months of this season for us. And that could be huge for just maintaining the positive mentality of the team going forward.
It's like I said the other week as well. Like there's so many teams getting dragged into. I mean, Carlisle look like they're pretty much adrift now. They're on 20 points. Fleetwood's 22.
And Fleetwood visit. I think we play Fleetwood in a few weeks' time as well.
Well,
we
that's
do.
A huge game. Carlisle and Fleetwood. And really that's daylight if we beat both of them.
Yeah.
Burton Albion are not in good form. Exeter, so. Shrewsbury, not great. Obviously, our friends Port Vale are getting really dragged into it, and obviously Charlton. I think Charlton will have enough to stay up, realistically, given
I'd expect so.
Those other teams. So you're probably looking at Carlisle, Fleetwood, Cheltenham, and then another, which hopefully won't be us. Now, whether or not that's, I don't know. It's pointless speculating, but
I think it's going to be
there could be about 5 teams that another would be basically.
If I look at it right now, I think it's going to be one of us, Port Vale, Burton, or maybe Shrewsbury. I think those are the teams that have consistently been a bit meh in that area. And I get if I had to throw it at someone right now, I'd say it's probably Port Vale. Sorry, guys.
You can't say that.
Yeah. No, I know. That feels awful, doesn't it? It's Burton. It's definitely Burton.
But let's just look at these games before we sign off here. So we've got Stevenage, obviously, next game away. We've got Charlton at home, Fleetwood away, Portsmouth away, which is going to be tough. So that's a kind of throwaway game. We've then got Port Vale back at home. Obviously, the rescheduled or rearranged or replayed fixture, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Shrewsbury at home.
Yeah.
Carlisle away. Wickham at home.
Yeah.
Derby away. And then you've got Cambridge, Bristol Rovers, Northampton. So, feasibly, by the time we go to Bolton on the 1st of April, you'd hope that by the end of the March, by the time we play Northampton on the 29th of March, we will be, very much looking up as opposed to looking down. And looking at those games, I don't think, apart from Portsmouth away, obviously Derby away as well, I don't think there's anything to be massively panicking about given our current form.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Reading can compete with anyone in this league. On a good day, Reading can... I don't think Reading can beat anyone, but I think that Reading can compete with basically everyone. And remember, this Charlton game, it's the same as the Exeter game on New Year's Day. So if we win that game, we come out of the relegation zone at the expense of Charlton. So it's huge, obviously. I think that cut out March. I think by the end of February, at the end of March 2nd, which is the Carlisle game, we should be out of the relegation zone by 3 points. If we're going to get out of the relegation zone and stay out, that would be my goal for February. For by the end of the Carlisle game, would be to be out of the relegation zone by 3 points, and that's a 5-point swing in what we're looking at here, 7 games. So a 5-point swing with 21 points available. Reading are getting something like 1.5 a game right now, so it's doable. It's very doable, and there are teams down there who we are facing in the next few weeks. So, yeah. Huge month.
Oh God, what are we? Start of February, and it's already getting pretty stressful. Already getting pretty stressful. But
squeaky bum time on the way.
it's already What's the pre-squeaky bum time? Trap win.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah.
probably stomach pains, whatever, ground pains.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Ominous
look,
rumblings.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I might need the toilet in a minute.
All right, let's get out of here. Yeah.
That's just me saying that. It's not a fact.
Anyway.
Listen, I said at the start of the pod, in my little intro, can we get out of this? Ross, can we get out of this?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
All in on this team now. All in on
time.
This management team. It's got to be, regardless what we think, we're just there for the ride. We've got to get out of this. We've got to do this. We've got to stay in this League One of, well, whatever it is. So, let's cross everything. Let's keep backing the boys. Let's keep making some noise. And, we will see you this time next week. Ross, have a fantastic week, whatever you're doing.
Thank you. Have a good week, everyone.
Enjoy your dinner, which I guess is in 4 hours' time.
A little bit of time, yeah. No wife this weekend, so my wife doesn't like seafood. I'm eating all the seafood,
all the prawns.
Yeah, exactly.
Sea bass. What do you have in Maine?
Bass. Lobster is the big thing. No, lobster. Catfish is a Louisiana thing, other side of the country. Right. But yeah, lobsters are the big thing in Maine. That's actually what the rest of the country knows us for, is lobsters.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was mutant crocodiles. Have
mutant
you seen
crocodiles? Yeah, we've talked about Lake Placid before at the start of the season. But yeah, mutant crocodiles and very tasty lobsters.
Fair play. And Steve Evans with a Highland dog.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we'll get that out after this for sure.
I'm gonna post that.
Yeah, get that posted. Good.
Have a really good week, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the day of not losing to Oxford once again. They haven't beaten us this millennium. Ha ha! How funny is that? Enjoy yourselves. If you're going to Stevenage on Tuesday, let's bring back at least a point, and then we'll see you back home at the Stade de Majetski on Saturday for the visit of Charlton. Have a good week. Take care. Come on, you R's.